May 1945. Berlin in ruins. The Third Reich in its death throes. In an underground bunker surrounded by Soviet forces, Adolf Hitler took his own life. His closest associates dead or captured. Goebbels poisoned his family. Goering surrendered. Himmler swallowed cyanide. But one man vanished. Martin Bormann, the gray eminence of the Reich, the man who controlled the money, the information, and access to the Führer himself. His body was never found. His fate became one of the greatest mysteries of the 20th century. And here's the most incredible theory. He didn't flee to Argentina. He didn't die in Berlin's ruins. He lived here, in sunny Crimea, under the protection of the NKVD. I'm Professor Alexander Hartwell, and today we're investigating a secret that both sides of the Iron Curtain tried to bury. To understand this story, you need to know who Martin Bormann was. He wasn't a charismatic orator like Goebbels. He didn't command armies like Goering. He was a shadow, but he held the strings of power. From 1943, Hitler's personal secretary. Every order from the Führer passed through his hands. Every person who wanted to meet Hitler needed Bormann's permission. He controlled the Nazi Party's treasury, billions of Reichsmarks, gold looted across Europe, Swiss bank accounts. He was one of the most powerful and most hated men in the Third Reich. Goering called him a pig. Goebbels wrote in his diary, "Bormann is the worst of all of us." But most importantly, he knew everything, every secret, every bank account, every deal, every agent, and this man disappeared. April 30th, 1945. Hitler is dead. The Red Army is mere hundreds of meters from the bunker. The remaining Nazis attempt to break out. On the night of May 1st, a small group leaves the bunker. Among them, Martin Bormann and Hitler's personal physician, Ludwig Stumpfegger. A witness, Hitler's chauffeur, Erich Kempka, later testified. They joined a group of SS tanks attempting to break through to the north. At the Weidendammer Bridge, Soviet barrage fire, tanks destroyed, chaos, smoke, flames. Kempka sees Bormann and Stumpfegger lying on the ground. Wounded? Dead? No one ever saw them again. The official version states Bormann swallowed a cyanide capsule and died right there at the bridge. But his body was not found, not that night, not later. 27 years, nothing. And then in 1972, during construction in West Berlin, they find the two skeletons. Dental examination, DNA analysis in 1998. Conclusion, it's Bormann. Case closed. But this is where the real mystery begins. After the war, Soviet intelligence, SMERSH, then the NKVD, actively searched for Bormann, fall 1945, checking reports of his appearance in Germany. Spring 1946, trails leading to Spain. 1947, possible lead in South America. But here's the question, why search for a dead man? Moreover, Joseph Stalin personally takes interest in these searches, issues directives, demands reports. Why? Either the Kremlin didn't believe Bormann was dead, or they knew something the West didn't. And here emerges an incredible hypothesis. What if Bormann wasn't just a Nazi? What if he was a Soviet agent? In some declassified documents, there's mention of an agent with the codename BOMMEN. His recruitment, allegedly late 1920s, early 1930s, through the Comintern, through underground channels. Mission, infiltrate the Nazi Party. And he rises, climbs the ladder of power, gets close to Hitler. Then war begins. The Battle of Kursk, July 1943. Germans plan Operation Citadel, the largest offensive at the Kursk salient. The start date is top secret. Only Hitler's closest circle knows. And suddenly, Soviet command knows the exact date, prepares a counterstrike. The operation fails. Source of information? Conspiracy theorists say Bormann, but that's not all. Until 1942, the NKVD's contact with the Reich's top leadership allegedly went through Reinhard Heydrich, chief of the RSHA, one of the architects of the Holocaust. In May 1942, Czech partisans kill Heydrich in Prague. Conspiracists ask, wasn't this the elimination of a burned agent whose contact had become dangerous? And after Heydrich's death, precisely from mid-1942, the flow of valuable intelligence to Moscow intensifies. Coincidence? Or a brilliant operation by Soviet intelligence? So, May 1945, Berlin has fallen. According to legend, Smersh agents or a special NKVD group find Bormann in the chaos of the assault. He's wounded but alive. They extract him, false documents, possibly disguised as a wounded Soviet officer. At the death site, they later plant two corpses, Bormann and Stumpfegger, to be found 27 years later. Bormann is brought to the Soviet Union. Why? First, interrogation. His knowledge is priceless. Reich structure, where treasures are hidden, Western connections, Swiss accounts, agent lists. Second, insurance. While the West tries Nazis at Nuremberg, the Kremlin holds an ace up its sleeve. And third, reward. After interrogations, Bormann is not eliminated. He's hidden, one of the NKVD's secret dachas in Crimea. Massandra, Foros, Simeas, warm climate, vineyards, sea. Legend says, there, under a false name, the gray eminence of the Third Reich lives out his days, consults Soviet intelligence on Nazi matters, writes memoirs no one will ever see, and dies in obscurity, sometime in the 1960s or 1970s, buried in an unmarked grave, or his ashes scattered over the sea. No traces, no evidence. The perfect disappearance. But let's be honest. This version is beautiful, dramatic, captivating. But there are serious problems. Problem 1, evidence of death. 1972, skeletons found. Dental examination, match. 1998, DNA analysis with Bormann's relatives, match. For science, he's dead. Problem 2, his character. Everything we know about Bormann, a fanatical, cynical, ruthless Nazi, absolutely devoted to Hitler. The version that he betrayed the Führer and worked for Stalin, psychologically implausible. Problem 3, impracticality. Keeping the most wanted Nazi alive for decades, enormous risk. Far more logical, extract information, then eliminate. Problem 4, no sources. Not a single declassified Soviet document directly confirms this version. Everything's built on speculation, coincidences, and logical chains. So what is this? Myth? Disinformation? Or the most brilliant cover-up operation in history? The story of Martin Bormann is more than the mystery of one man. It's a mirror of our belief in secret powers, in the omnipotence of intelligence agencies, in the idea that the greatest villains can escape justice. On one hand, the cold language of forensics, skeleton, DNA, death in Berlin. On the other, the seductive legend of double-dealing, of a man who deceived both Hitler and history. Perhaps Bormann's real crime wasn't what he did, but that he vanished, leaving behind not a body but a ghost that still haunts conspiracy tracts and the shaded paths of Crimean parks. What do you think? Did he die in Berlin in May 1945? Or does his shadow still lie across history? Write your theory in the comments. This was the first episode of the Mystery Chronicles. I'm Professor Alexander Hartwell. Until the next mystery.